All right, welcome back to the garage. The progress continues on this thing. Today, or at least in this episode, it's not all going to be in one day. We are going to tackle adding some heat wrap to the exhaust just to protect the occupancy area, the driver area, from some heat coming through that transmission tunnel, and maybe protect the transmission a little bit from that heat. We're going to address some underbody aero, and we'll see maybe what else we can get to in this video. So thanks for coming and checking us out, and we're going to jump in with some time lapse of putting some header wrap on the exhaust. All right, the first thing we're going to tackle is just these exhaust pipes. I'm going to start with this side. I've got leftover header wrap, and I think I can do both sides. I think I got enough, but we're going to start with this side and just go back to probably this X. Kind of two goals with this. First is just heat being transferred through the transmission tunnel into the passenger area, because there's no carpet, no insulation there, obviously. So just trying to cut down on the heat a little bit, especially in like stop and go traffic situations. Just a lot of radiant heat up there in the summer when it's already 90 degrees outside. So just trying to keep some of the heat down here, and also just try and keep some heat off of the transmission if I can. It's pretty close. In fact, it might actually be rubbing there slightly on this flex joint, but it's definitely close in some places. I went ahead and retrieved my wife's favorite baking dish from the kitchen, put some water in it, and started soaking this header wrap in here. The worm clamps that are large enough to go around this 3-inch diameter pipe, so I'll have to get some more of those and finish this up later, but that's pretty much the idea. And that's a look at the finished product. So we will take this out on the road and give it a test when I get it back out of the road, when it's finally a nice enough day to drive this thing. But hopefully it does the job of keeping the heat out of the transmission tunnel and out of the driver area. Okay, with the car back down on the ground after wrapping up the exhaust heat shielding or heat wrap, the next thing I want to tackle is the Holley wire harness. So let me get in here and show you what I'm talking about. So I usually have this zip tied up in the center, right behind my center console, and just kind of a big ball of wire. But I've pulled the zip ties out and just kind of pulled this out. And there's a lot of excess wire here. Probably 3 feet on both wire harnesses, maybe 4. And there are 2 wire harnesses, one for the GDI controller because this is direct injected, and the main wire harness for the ECU. And they're both long, so there's a big bundle of wire up there. So I am going to shorten these. I am probably not going to shorten them the way that most of you would shorten them. And there's one main reason for that. I'm colorblind. And so I don't want to depin the connector, lose my place, and try and sort out where that pin is supposed to go, because I won't really be able to read a diagram and know by color which pinhole is supposed to go back into. So to avoid that, I am actually just going to cut probably right about here, and but I'm going to cut one wire at a time, and I'm just going to use some butt end connectors and some heat shrink tubing, and one wire at a time I'm going to cut it, splice it, cut the length out that I need, and splice the connector in there, and just go one wire at a time. It's going to be painstakingly slow. I know it would be much faster just to go straight to the connector, lop it off, and then repin it down here. But that is rife with problems for me in losing my spot. So I'm going to do it the difficult way, but know that the wires are still in the same spot when I get finished. So that's how we'll proceed. Took me about 10 minutes to get all this loom off and everything untaped. There was a lot of electrical tape, which is good, I guess, if you're leaving it the way it is. So here goes nothing. First wire cut. Let's start cutting and splicing. All right, a couple of hours later, and several bouts with legs that had fallen asleep, kneeling here on the concrete. I've got this shortened up. I took about 2.5 foot out of it, I think. I could do that up there, but I don't want to mess with it. There's some inputs here, so I've got one of the connectors completed. I'm going to throw some wire loom around that. That'll be good. And the other one is most of the way completed, but I need to break into these. And I need to do some research. So this braided wire here is CAN bus, and that's a low voltage data wire. So I don't know if I should cut that or not. I'm going to ask on some forums and see if I can find an answer, see if I can cut this. And then I need to break into these and see if this is braided as well or not. I need to cut it open and check, but it's getting late here, so I'm gonna hop on some forums before I hit the sack and ask some questions, and then we'll get back at it tomorrow. All right, posted online and got my answers. This really shouldn't be cut, this braided pair, so we're not going to be cutting that. And then this, I took a section out, actually right here where you can see the electrical tape. I just cut it a little bit, and there is aluminum shielding inside of here, so I'm not going to cut those either just because of the shielded nature. So we've got the connectors themselves on the main harness about 2.5 foot shorter. I am going to kind of wrap it up with a little bit of electrical tape, and then reuse some of this wire loom to kind of make it all look decent. So we'll do that. Got it all loomed back up. So here are the 2 connectors, and still got this loop kind of hanging outside, but now all the other connectors come out right here. So once I get it up in there where the Terminator X is at, it should be nice. I still have extra, but it would have been really difficult to get the extra 12 inches or so out of this harness There would have been a lot more cutting and splicing. So next I'll work on this GDI connector. I'm gonna go between this little indicator box. It's got a little LED on it. I'm not sure what it's for exactly. It has something to do with, I believe, the high pressure fuel pump. And probably take this all the way up here. Well, I cut into this, and I'd say 75% of this is either braided or that shielded cable. So I'm not even gonna attempt to shorten this down. I'm just gonna route it in there maybe a little neater and call it good. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to cut out as much as I wanted, but I did get 2.5 foot out of one of the harnesses, and was able to clean it up a little bit. So it definitely looks better than it did before. On to the next thing. Hopefully it goes well. Is throwing a strip of window tint across the top. I have something of a sun visor here. It's actually from an ATV, UTV, only on the driver's side. It actually doesn't work bad. I only bought one because they're kind of expensive, and I wanted to test it out on one side. But I also picked up some cheap window tint just to throw across the top. I have never done any window tinting, so this will be a learning experience. I watched a couple of YouTube videos, so I guess that makes me an expert now. So we'll start by removing that GoPro mount. I'm not going to remove the stickers. Everything I said was, you know, you get the size right by cutting out on the outside, and then it actually goes and mounts underneath. So we'll start by cleaning this up and getting a surface I can work with to get the right size of this strip, and then move to the inside. One of the tutorials I saw said to lay this at the top here, and then because of the curvature of the windshield, to kind of basically trace the top curvature of the windshield out so that it kind of matches. This one that I bought, I think it was on Amazon. If I can find a link, I'll drop in the description. It's straight on this edge, but this edge actually already has a curve to it because it's meant for this purpose. So I think I'm just gonna run with the curve they've already got in the tint. Not to mention there's this kind of radical on the C4 Corvette, radical kind of corner here that I think would look goofy if it just kind of whipped up in the corner here. So we're just going to work with this. The other thing is that on this windshield, there's no mark. I forget what it's called, ASR or something, I don't know. There's supposed to be a mark that says how far you can bring the tint down on the windshield. There's not on this car, on either side of the windshield. So I'm gonna choose probably somewhere an inch or so below the lettering here. That seems reasonable. I'll probably sit in the car and kind of get an idea for what looks like it's gonna be out of my view. I don't really want to see the line when I'm driving in most situations. What I want is it to block the sun from coming through the top when it's trying to blind me. So I'll figure out a line that looks reasonable that I don't think will get me in trouble, and we'll lay this on here and start tracing it out. I think that's about where I'm gonna land. It looks reasonable. Should do a decent job of blocking the sun. Sorry about the light coming directly into the camera, but it's a little bit about how it works. The next step is with the backlight down in there to trace around the edge. So you don't actually go all the way to the edge of the windshield. You just need to cover this black line that's on the windshield naturally. So using that light behind it, I'll take a razor and kind of cut around the edge. And it does have a little bit of wrinkle, partially because of the window trim at the top. So as I cut that, that'll go away. And some of it might be being generated by the decals that are on the outside of the windshield. Again, I think all that'll flatten out once I get to the inside. There's no decals on the inside of the windshield, so. All right, I got the shape cut out. I pulled it down a little bit just so I could cut a little bit across the top, because otherwise it was going to cut across that After Dark Speed sticker, and I didn't want to do that, so I just kind of cut right up to the edge on both sides and then drew a straight line to cut across down here. So next step will be to give the inside where this is actually going to go a thorough cleaning. I'm going to do just some window cleaner, and then I'm going to do some Quad Zero steel wool on the inside just to make sure it's super clean, and then another bath with the window cleaner, and then we can go to town with the water and mountain it up there. Just for your knowledge, I am doing it on the cheap with just a rewards card, so I don't have the special like plastic squeegee stuff that a lot of these window tinners use. Hopefully I can get it done with a credit card. Just trying to do it on the cheap and make it look reasonable and mostly functional. Functional. This was just to help me line up. This little tape here was just to help me line up the tint. But yeah, that was a little bit of a struggle bus on the inside. I'm sure I'll have the time lapse in there. So just to get it kind of line up, it's sticky on the back, and I think that dries. The water helps you be able to move it around, but really not very well. You got to get it pretty lined up just to begin with. So there are a couple little bubbles in it here. I think I can take a heat gun to that later and work that out. I'm going to let it sit a little bit and dry out, and then I'll try a heat gun to that. But at a minimum, that should be functional. It's 5% tint. Should block a lot of the sun. You can see the difference between that light here and then coming through. It's nice and dark. So that should definitely help with just driving around town on a sunny day, or even a track day where the sun's going down. The last thing that I'm going to tackle in this video is some underbody aero. So I'm going to throw a picture up here of the underneath side of an F1 car, and what I'm attempting to do is similar to what they're doing there. The principles are the same. Obviously there's a whole lot more engineering that goes into those cars, but the principles should still be the same. We want to create as low a pressure under the car as possible, and that will actually suck the car to the ground, and it does so with a lot less drag than above the car aero like wings. So it's a more efficient way to get downforce. So what we're going to do is create a couple of vanes underneath the car, and we're going to do this in a cheap way so that hopefully air coming from the front underneath the car gets pushed out the sides, out in front of the rear wheels, creating a low pressure, and that will even be magnified once it goes through the diffuser, because an already low pressure will become even more low pressure in the rear diffuser. So the way we're going to do this is just some garden edging from Home Depot or Lowe's. This is 3-inch edging, I believe. Let's see if there's a size on here. That's obvious. Not obvious, but I'm pretty sure it's 3-inch edging. And then a piece of angle iron. Well, it's not iron, it's aluminum. And I'm actually going to cut these into a bunch of little sections on the bandsaw so that I can make just little brackets. And that's what's going to hold this. So part of this bracket will go against the floor of the car, and then the part coming down will be bolted to this. This 3 inches is probably a little high. Part of the reason why I'm doing it this way is because, and why I'm bolting it, is because I want this to be removable. This is going to be really close to the ground, and you want it as close as possible to get maximum effect, but it's going to be so close that it's really not going to be practical for driving. I'm going to want to install this only on autocross and track days. Maybe not even install it until I'm at the track. So I should have brought the light. Let me grab a light. All right, with the edging slid underneath there and that light now, I have probably just over 1 inch clearance. For reference, I can't really fit 3 fingers. I can kind of fit 2 with a little bit of space, but 3 will not fit. So it's probably a little over 1 inch, and that's super close. I mean, taking a corner on an autocross course, we're definitely going to be rubbing the ground. Now, it's edging, it's plastic. Not that concerned about it. I'm probably more concerned about it pushing up on the fiberglass floor and causing an issue there. So I think I'm going to try and trim this down to about 2 inches, give me 2 inches of clearance on the ground. That's still too close for any serious street driving, but on an autocross course that's flat, or the main road course here in St. Louis, Worldwide Technology Raceway, it's pretty flat. There's no real bumps or potholes or anything, so I think 2 inches will be enough. So that's what we're going to work on. All right, now I need to figure out where I want these things to run. There are, it's not a perfectly flat floor, but the floor of the Corvette is reasonably flat, so this should work. I think I'm going to run with 2 vanes on each side. I don't know if vane is the proper word, but probably, as I look at this, thinking a short one. Let me get this vantage point. The transmission tunnel widens toward the front, and then right about here, this is the front mounts for the seats, the driver's seat. Same with the passenger side over there. So here's where the transmission tunnel is fully narrow. You can kind of see it widens toward the front. So I'm thinking maybe I'll pick a vane up somewhere right in this area. Start it and try and run it out here. You can see the rear tire. Something curving in there, and then maybe a longer one that runs somewhere here-ish, and then comes out. So the first one will come out maybe about here. Second one, maybe coming out here. So we're kind of directing the air underneath the car out to the side and creating a pocket of low pressure in the middle there. And that'll get picked up by the vanes that are on this rear diffuser. I might actually try and connect that edging, if I have enough, to the edge of this rear diffuser to extend this. I made this short because I drive it on the street and I don't want to take it off all the time. So it's got 3.5 inches or so of clearance to the ground. And it's also closer to the suspension, so it's much less likely to high center, whereas in the middle, as you go over hills and stuff, you're going to high center and rub something that hangs down further there. So anyway, I might look at putting the edging on the rear diffuser, or at least the outside too, just to extend that down and then attach that on track days. We'll see what I have left. But anyway, these vanes should pick up that low pressure and do a good job there. So we'll start mocking this up. So I cut that aluminum length of angle and I cut it into basically 1-inch sections. There's some loss from the blade, but cut it on the bandsaw. I've center punched them, and I think I need 22 of these based on how I've placed those vanes. So center punched them. I'm over here drilling them out, and then they're going to get a riv nut in them. So there'll be 22 bolts going into these 22 brackets holding the vanes to the car. That should make it easier to get in and out with these riv nuts instead of having to deal with a nut on the backside. And then to attach it to the floor of the car, I'm thinking I might just use rivets. I haven't gotten that far yet, but I am worried about it pulling through the fiberglass, especially if it gets hit or something. So on the top, I'm probably going to run some sort of plate of aluminum as well, just to kind of sandwich the fiberglass between two pieces of aluminum to give it a little bit more than just a rivet in the fiberglass. So, but that's a lot of material for a rivet to go through. This bracket, a piece of fiberglass, and another piece of aluminum on top of it. So I'm not sure if I can make a rivet work there. We will deal with that when we get there. And like that, 22 brackets are done. All right, got one side done. Here's kind of a look at what it looks like. See if I can swing the camera around in here. So you got 2 vanes. One starts up here at right under the gas pedal, basically. Comes down, and then they both swing out to the side and help push the air out. So I am liking the way that turned out. I think that'll work. And then to disconnect it for regular driving, I'll leave the little L brackets that I made up here and just pull out the bolts that hold it in, and then save these for when I need them for track days. And then on the top, in front of this point is fiberglass floor. So I made these little plates, there's 3 of them, as backing for the riv nuts, just to help it not pull through the fiberglass. And then behind this bar is sheet metal. So I just use rib nuts directly into the sheet metal for the ones back to this point. So I got the driver's side done. I am going to go ahead and finish the other side off camera and end this episode here. We will see later this spring and summer if this actually has an effect. I'm hoping it does. I think the science, as long as I executed it reasonably well, says that it should have an effect. So we'll have fun with this later. It's early January right now, so track days are still in the distance, so I don't get to test this right away. Anyhow, thanks for watching along, and maybe subscribe if you like. And I'll catch you on the next one.